Hey guys, I am checking out the Raleigh Detour and I've got the step-thru as well as the high step. This is a pretty sweet bike. Comes in several different sizes, a couple of nice colors, sort of that eggshell baby blue over here, and then this gloss black with a little bit of gray accents. Clearly sort of a his and hers combination. A lot of times I'd say, hey, you know, it doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl, you got this nice step-thru frame and everything, but I don't know how many guys are gonna love the light blue. Some, maybe. And again, very solid platform. Either one of these bikes is gonna be great for just cruising around town. You know, you've got the integrated fenders. They're plastic, and I noticed that this one's, it's a little bit, there's good clearance and everything, but they're a more basic connection point here. Same on that one, of course. I like how they blend in over here, just the black, and then we've got this paint-matched alloy chain cover, as well as a plastic guide. So, cleanliness is a big thing with this bike. You've got disc brakes, hydraulic disc brakes, instead of rim brakes. Like Raleigh has the Retro Glide IE and the Sprite IE, and those are a little bit cheaper, $19.99, $18.99 versus $23.99. And you step up and you get a much better drive system, something that's from Shimano. You might have heard of this company before. They make excellent components. So, we've got a derailleur in the rear. This is 9 speeds, a Serra, several steps up from just the Shimano Tourney entry level, and 9 speeds versus like 7 or 8 on the other. So there's a clear step happening when you get up. But the biggest point for me, the one that's probably the highest consideration, is the weight. These only weigh 48.2 pounds. That's with the battery, with the motor, everything. 48.2 pounds, that's amazing. And the battery is 5.5 pounds. It's not quite as high voltage. This is 36, 11.6 amp hours compared with 48, 8.8. So 36 volts, it doesn't transfer electricity quite as efficiently, but I would say that power-wise and climbing-wise and stuff, this is still a very capable drive system. So it's a mid-drive. You can see it mounted right here. It's got good torque, and I guess the way that I'd describe it is a little bit more fluid. With the other drives from Transx, I was noticing it's sort of a cadence sensor. It doesn't matter if you're pushing or not. And you might think well, that's cool. I don't want to push real hard. I want to just relax. Yes, that's true. But when it comes time to switch gears, it doesn't know oh, they're easing off. I should ease off too. So they switch and, don't bang the chain up and the sprockets and the derailleur. So this is a step up in terms of performance that way, and probably durability. You're not going to wear, the drivetrain out quite as quickly. And I guess it just feels a little bit more fluid. Regardless of whether you're in eco, normal, or power mode, there are 3 levels on this bike. If you push harder, you get more power, and that's kind of satisfying. It also extends your range significantly. So, that's the kind of bike this is. It's a little bit more active, and you can see that too in the tires here. They're not quite as thick and balloon-like, especially compared to the Retro Glide. They're a little bit more efficient, more narrow, but they've still got a kind of a hybrid tread, go anywhere tread. The disc brakes I mentioned earlier, but hydraulic disc brakes, these levers are going to be a little bit easier to pull, and they're going to give you more power. They also have adjustable reach. So, if you come in here, there's a little set screw, and you can bring this back a little ways if you're someone with smaller hands. And that's probably especially relevant on the step-thru over here. So those are things that I think about. Still have nice internally routed cabling going on. We got quick release front and rear, great kickstand position. See how it's really far back? It's not going to collide with those pedals. Surprisingly, a lot of these mid-drives, it just sort of freewheels here. It doesn't actually move the chain. So you kind of have to put these in a stand and hang them if you want to do maintenance. That's something to think about. Got a nice rack. It's rated at 25 kilograms, which is about 55 pounds. And again, you're only taking 5.5 pounds of that for the battery. So, up to maybe 50 pounds. You could clip on panniers here. You've got a kind of a bungee cord loop here, so you could strap things down. You could put a trunk bag on this. Lots of different options. And then look at this. There's a little battery port right there for charging. One of my complaints about the Shimano drive system in the past is oh, you have to take the battery off to charge it. Well, not anymore. You can charge their batteries on the bike. And that's nice because, you can imagine coming over to this thing and turning the key and pulling it out. Let's just try that. Yep, there we go. Comes out nice and easy. But every time doing that, it's there's more potential for dropping it. And that's no good. You don't want to damage your battery pack. I do want to call out that the interface right there, see that big rectangular thing? That's where the charger plugs in on the battery. Let's just get this back on. Look at that, nice, it clicks right in. You don't need to leave the keys in when riding. Love that, really refined. There we go. And now look at this charging port. See how small it is? It's very different. So there's actually a special little adapter block, and it's really easy to lose. So I have the charger with me, and there's no adapter block. I don't know where it is. They just gave me this, and I think it makes that point really well, that it's like, you don't want to accidentally lose that piece, because then you're going to have to go back to taking the battery off every time you want to charge. You know, maybe in the future, maybe it'd be cool if they had like a little dongle, so like it would stay with it. It could just hang off to the side like a little loop thing, and then you could click it on when you need to charge. Or they could be like Bosch, or like, you know, several of the other companies out there. I wanted to say Yamaha, I'm not sure. I think a lot of them just have one charging interface, and there's like Energy Bus, which is magnetic. I don't want to get too off track here. They are trying to keep the costs low and stuff. I felt like, why not just one plug? You know, that'd be something to strive for in the future. Thankfully, this charger isn't super heavy. It's like, 1.7 pounds, and the amp output is 3.1. Most electric bike chargers are only 2 amps, so this is going to charge it quite a bit faster and get you back out riding quickly. And that charger could easily fit in that trunk bag we were talking about if you wanted. I like that their saddle, it's a Velo, but it's branded Raleigh. A little bit wider. It's got a handle underneath so you can pick up the bike and move it around. One thing I frequently reference is like the seat posts. You could swap this with a seat post suspension, but in so doing, if you lift the bike like this, that can be hard on the joints and stuff. So I would just approach that carefully. Also, on a step-thru like this, if you put a suspension post, you can't drop the seat as low. And for someone who's already struggling to, straddle the bike, that could be kind of a question mark. But for people who can, I think it could be kind of worth it. They sell them for like $100 to $150 online, and potentially in a shop. Hopefully you're getting this at the shop. They can set it up for you and then really make it a little bit more comfortable. This is an aluminum alloy frame with an aluminum fork, and that's not known as like the most comfortable, like rattle dampening material. Aluminum's light and it works really well for bikes. It's a very popular material, but you feel things more. And coming back to these tires, they're just not super cushiony. They're a little bit wider, which makes them efficient, but the tire themselves is a little bit narrower. Thankfully, coming back to the saddle, ergonomic grips, swept back handlebar, that all helps. A little bit longer, a little bit more upright. You can see there's even like 5 of these little 5mm riser stacks, and this I don't know if that's 15 degree. It's a little bit more upright. And that's my style of riding personally. If you're riding around town, maybe you're using this to commute or just cruise around the neighborhood and get some groceries. Those are things I think about. You want it to be comfortable and clean. Just coming back to that last point there. So yeah, let's take a little walk around. I already mentioned the disc brakes. They're 160mm, which is a decent size for a lighter bike. 20 mile/hour top speed. This is class 1, so it's the most accessible class that's like widely allowable in the most locations and stuff. Got a nice set of keys there, kickstand that's out of the way, internally routed cables, so they kind of stay clean, they're not going to get snagged as easily. And I love that they were able to even fit bottle cage bosses on here. So a lot of times with the step-thru, they just don't have them. And in this case, they're mounted high enough that I think they're out of the way if you're swinging your foot through, but still be careful. If you have a water bottle there, you don't want to bend it or scratch your frame. You could put like a folding lock or a mini pump. And if we look at these pedals here, just plastic. They've got some grippy nubs. They're all right. Depending on how you ride and how wet it is, sometimes I consider buying more like aluminum ones that have a little bit more tread. Honestly, I think these might be the stock pedals because I'm familiar with them. They have an aluminum alloy core with a little bit smaller surface area that's plastic and rubber. So I kind of like those ones better. Pedals aren't super expensive, but I'm trying to show you what I have to work with here today, and these are probably the ones. More bottle cage bosses, so they fit them on the high step as well as the step-thru. This is a more traditional frame. If you're hanging this off the back of your car, it's going to be a lot easier with a top tube like this, and this one's going to ride a little bit stiffer and tighter. It's going to be a little bit higher performance just because of the frame geometry. And there's that sticker, class 1, 250 watt, 20 miles per hour. So 250 watt, that's the nominal output of this motor, but it goes a lot higher in peak output when you're really stressing the system and it's like highest power level, and it's pretty capable. We'll take a test ride in a little bit and talk more about that. So before we jump into test rides, I should walk you through the display. I love that it pivots. It's sort of adjustable angle. You can even use a screwdriver to kind of angle the display as well as the whole mount. It's very adjustable. And the display comes off. Check that out. So you can take it with you. Back to that commuting scenario. Sometimes it's a real bummer to leave your bike out in the sun. It gets faded over time. Maybe someone's bike tips into yours and scratches it, or someone just steals your display. That's really no fun. So being removable, that's a really great feature. And you can see the button pad over here, pretty easy to reach, fairly compact. And I'm told that you could potentially mount it over here on the right if you wanted. Shimano does a good job with like their cable management stuff. You got a little rubber band here and the cables are all tucked away. It just really doesn't look as busy as some of the other electric bikes I've seen. Like everything's pretty tight, clean. So to turn it on, you actually have to come back here to the battery, press this little power button. This is one of my complaints. It's kind of like, okay, I guess that keeps people from tampering with it, but you gotta remember, like, you might hop on your bike and then realize, like, oh, you know, I need to turn it on. So we've done that. The display is live. It's given us some feedback. We've got speed, miles per hour, time, off. That's the level of assist. So right now it's off. And then range. Range is really cool. So as soon as I start arrowing up with assist, range is going to dynamically tell me how far we can go. So 57 miles in eco, not bad. 51 in normal, and 42 in high. Notice how high those are. A lot of the Trans-X Drive Raleigh e-bikes that I was reviewing, they just don't go as far per charge. It's not quite as efficient, and that's because I think it's cadence sensing versus torque. Like, you have to work a little bit more on these bikes, but you're still getting a lot of power. Okay, and then if I press this black button here, it's gonna take me through the other readouts. Here we've got the range chart. It gives us all of them in one single view. And then we're back here to the home page. It says time, average speed, max speed, distance, odometer, and then back to range. Now, the really cool thing about this display is that you can hold plus up and down and enter the settings. This is so cool. And you can clear everything. So I can go in here and be like, okay, what do I want to clear? I'm gonna exit that. Oh, I exited all the way out. And clear everything. You can set your clock, your start mode. So do you want to start in like eco, power, or normal? Backlight, you can adjust that. So off, on, or manual. That's really cool because sometimes when you're riding at night, you want to keep your night vision. You don't want like a little bright light shining in your face. And a lot of systems, again, some of the Trans-X ones, the cheaper ones from Raleigh, I don't think they let you do that. It's like an automatic light sensor, and it's like, oh, it's dark, and then it brights up your screen. I think you can adjust it down, but I'm not sure you can turn it off. One thing that this bike doesn't have is integrated lights, and that's too bad because it's nice to run the lights off of your battery. Just have one thing to charge. You don't have to worry about lights getting stolen. And I see people occasionally put lights on their seat post, and then they put a bag right here on the rack, and it blocks the light. So put your light back here if you can. At least we have good reflectors and stuff. Okay, so then back here, let's put our backlight on. And then my favorite, beep. Do you hear all these beeps? Isn't that kind of annoying? You can turn that off. Oh, so much nicer. Units, miles, language, English. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can adjust in here, and it's just one of the better display systems. Shimano's getting better and better, and I think their drive system is it's one of the kind of the smaller ones, a little bit lighter weight. Fits right there at the bottom bracket. So this is a purpose-built electric bike frame, and the weight is fairly well centered, except for the battery, which is up high and in the rear. And that's, you know, for a mid-drive like this on a high step, it'd be nice if the battery's down here. Shimano has a mid-mounted battery, but I understand that they wanted this to work well for the step-thru, and it does. It's a little bit of a compromise. There's a little bit of frame flex going on here, but this isn't like a super high-performance bike. It's more of a get-around bike, so I get it. It's fine. And it's a little bit more of a value bike. Stow that kickstand, saddle up, and I think I'm just going to take it up to high. Let's go. Look how fast that thing goes. So some of the other bikes I was complaining like, oh, they're cadence sensing and they don't have brake motor inhibitors. Well, this one doesn't either. See, I can press the brakes and pedal, and the motor still goes, but it's so fast because it's torque sensing that almost immediately when I stop pushing, that motor cuts out. And it's just really, it feels more like superpowers that respond to you than a scooter that takes you, if that makes sense. There's no throttle option for this, which some of the other Raleigh e-bikes have. You can add like a little button pad. And frankly, it's kind of like a halfway solution to me because you have to reach way over and push and hold on it. I prefer this clean, simplified interface, frankly. There we go. You can hear the motor dying out because I'm at about 20 miles per hour there. It just sort of fades out quietly. It's a pretty good job. And those brakes are holding up fine, even with just one hand. Pretty stable. Not getting any speed wobble or anything. That's nice. Now I might shift some gears. And I'm going to shift as smoothly as I can because, again, I can let off a little bit. I can ease off when I'm pushing and shift smoothly because it uses that torque sensor. I don't know how that sounded to you. It was a little bit bangy at the first few times, but overall I'd say it's a little bit better than the cadence. Okay guys, I put the camera right down where all the action is at the bottom bracket. And I'm gonna pedal along in the highest level of assist, pushing harder, easing off a little bit so you can hear how the motor responds. I'm gonna shift gears, and I'm also gonna shake the frame a little bit just to show the flex, because you're on the step-thru right now. You might have heard at the end there, oh boy! At the end, it wasn't, the motor shut off because we hit that 20 mile per hour top speed. And that's what I was talking about. It just kind of eases out. It's a really smooth system. You do hear the whining sound a little bit like, wah! But you know, when you're riding along in traffic and there's normal sounds, it's really not so bad. So this time I'm gonna do the shifting. Well, that's pretty fun. I'm excited about this bike. It's been improved a little bit since last year. It's still at a pretty good price point. I trust Shimano components, and I feel like their drive system's gotten a little bit better. For the full write-up on this, I will see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. I've measured the standover height and some of the other pieces, and you can comment and share any feedback. Maybe you have last year's version of this bike. I'd love to hear what you think. As always, ride safe and have fun.